All right, let's go. New year. It is the new year where I am at this time, and wherever you are, wherever you're joining. So excited to be with you as we continue this journey to empower children, to empower you, to empower anyone. We have the opportunity to encourage, to overcome ADHD. ADHD is meant to be overcome, not just as something we live with or cope with. It is actually the culmination. When we look at what ADHD really is by accurate info, we get a chance to understand that when the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders by the American Psychiatric Association, the only source for the criteria of diagnosis for ADHD, gives us a summary of symptoms that we call ADHD. Everything beyond that, I know, stop the presses, get ready for this. Here's where you're maybe getting tempted to click off and shake your head and say, I'll never watch this again. But the accurate info is that in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, under the diagnostic criteria for ADHD, we find a list of symptoms, and everything beyond that is really narrative because the understandings of disorder and divergence that go along with ADHD and the brain are not rooted in science, historical facts, or actually the DSM itself. I've shared with you information, and before you turn this off, before you turn away, let's look at the opportunity we have for true freedom. And that's why we're going to talk about the topic today, that we get to, in this new year, to overcome old fears. And in that, to let go, to be free of fear, worry. Some of you out there are like, hey, worry is my coat. I carry it. I need it. Do we? Maybe there's a greater freedom that God wants and has for us when we get a chance to overcome. And in this, we're going to talk about 5 major fears that are keeping us stuck in ADHD. What do you mean stuck, AJ? Because ADHD is this. I've been told the research, I'm doing air quotes if you're just listening to this, the quote unquote research says that ADHD is a brain disorder, a neurological disorder. It has to do with neurodivergence. It's not something that you overcome. Going back to what I was sharing in the first part of this video, when we look at the accurate information, we understand that ADHD and the diagnostic criteria in the DSM for short, for the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, tells us that ADHD is a culmination of symptoms, and that many of these symptoms can have over 16 different reasons, including normative childhood experiences or challenges. Yes, when your child may be throwing themselves down or having behavior that is hard to understand, these actually more often are confusing, challenging. However, believe it or not, in the scope of normal for children. When I say normal, what I mean is that children having these struggles is not indicative necessarily of any type of disorder. And in fact, when we get to disorders, we get a chance to understand that there can be true freedom in knowing that any kind of challenge, well, most challenges, the great majority of challenges, whatever you might be seeing, are meant to be understood and overcome on a personal level. That you have wisdom. Combine your wisdom with what I offer. You have resources. One of the greatest resources you have is yourself. You're out there. You've been given practical wisdom. You know things. Things have been shared with you. You've had experiences, and don't just let those combine with the narratives about ADHD. Allow them to challenge you to go outside of the box, to tap into what God has given you to be able to unlock great potential for yourself, to overcome fears, and for any child, personally or professionally, that you get a chance to empower. That's what we're here today. So we're going to dive into the focus of our time today, and I thank you for being here. Let's talk about these major fears. All right. Let's take a moment. What do you fear? What is an old fear that you have in this new year? Let's look at five that I'm going to identify. And if you want to replace or connect your own thoughts with these, that's important. Speaking of connecting thoughts, I've in the description, I've placed a a link to one of my series, a 5-part series that gives a lot of accurate information. And since you haven't turned this off and you've stayed connected, you've stayed involved, you stay tuned, please check out that 5-part series. I just put in part one. The title is Disillusion, because this is where I'm sharing accurate information to back up what I shared with you earlier about ADHD and us being able to get away from the narratives and towards empowerment. As we focus today on the empowerment of overcoming old fears in this new year, let's go. All right. First fear, we're going to first of the five major fears. Yes, I pulled that off. I said it. I got it. Okay. First of the five we're going to talk about today is that we can fear that when our child is having struggles, we can fear that if we don't go to the the doctor, the system, get in the medical system when it comes to our child having certain struggles that we don't understand, that we will be ignoring our child's needs. In this fear, we don't want to ignore our child's needs. We want to get them the help that they need to overcome any challenges. What we got to overcome, though, are the narratives. Because most of the time, when we get into a system, whether a teacher, a coach, an online resource, something, even our own experiences have directed us into the popular understandings of ADHD. We are often inundated with the narratives about what ADHD is and what this means, that our whole lives and legacies can be centered around. However, the great freedom in overcoming comes through love. Love meaning that you have the opportunity to recognize that you love your child, you care about a child, whether they're yours biologically or not. You have love, and you can overcome this fear of your child not getting what they need through true empowerment. What that comes in is you being empowered to understand the sorry, caught in my throat. The accurate, yes, it caught in my throat because this is so powerful, people. We're here. It catches in my throat the power of understanding the accurate info when it comes to yeah, I can't say it, ADHD. How do we do that? Just dig below the surface just a little bit. Instead of just hearing a podcast, check the source. Instead of just going on, quote the research, look for what it is. Find an actual research study. Read even just the opening and the conclusion. Truly read it. Truly discern what it's saying. Is it telling you something for a fact, or is it basically giving us a lot of theory, which most of ADHD are theories that have been purported as fact? When you look at something, someone tells you something, even me in my videos, look and see what sources are being provided. Use your wisdom to vet the sources. Find at least two sources that corroborate with each other, not just an article or somebody else telling you something, but actually find some historical data or some scientific something that actually is rooted in something beyond just being told something. I know I'm doing a lot of somethings, but you are something out there. You have something greater than the narrative. Tap into that. Let's go to the second fear. First fear is I'm ignoring my child's needs. The second fear that we want to overcome is I'm not setting my child up for success. We get concerned that if we don't get our child certain help, whether it comes through certain systems or opportunities or people pointing us to resources, that we're not going to be setting our child up for success. When they're struggling academically, maybe it makes sense that they are evaluated for psychotropic drugs. When they're struggling behaviorally, when they're struggling relationally, we get concerned. And we get a chance to overcome this fear actually with overcoming inadequacy and busyness. Why do I say that? a lot of times, I think parents and caregivers out there feel inadequate when their child are struggling academically, when their children are struggling behaviorally, when their children are struggling relationally, and you're doing everything you can and they continue to struggle. That can breed inadequacy. And also, many times we are struggling because we are so busy. We are trying to have house and home and take care of finances and needs and take our kids to all these different events and give them the life we never had. And in that, sometimes we just don't have time to take a step back to look at the accurate information and be able to look at how we are not inadequate. We have more power and ability to dig below the surface, get the accurate info, tap into your wisdom, and be able to apply that to empower your child to grow, to overcome the relational challenges, to overcome the behavioral challenge. You say, hey, AJ, I've been confused. I've tried everything and nothing works. Well, the resources, the power of able are here to help you get over the hump. Check out my books on Amazon. If you look at A Man and you look at the title of my book, and McMahon is McMahan. The books are entitled I've Tried Everything and Nothing Works, because that's the cry of parents of children 12 and under out there. I, I know the struggles are real. However, your empowerment, your wisdom, your ability, and your child's are also real. So, this, you overcome the inadequate busyness. We get into the third fear. And before we do that, the first two fears: one, I'm ignoring my child's needs; two, I'm not setting my child up for success; three, if I don't get my child help and support now, they will suffer later. This, we've got to overcome the now for the later. The now is often being funneled into a system that ultimately leads to the immediate effects of psychotropic drugs. And there's the drugs for ADHD, we call them medicine, but when you look at the accurate historical information, they are drugs, not to say bad or good, it's just accurately what they are. The drugs are not good or bad. Being in a process where you understand the actual role that the drugs can empower almost immediate changes with behavior and functioning and ability in the sense of how a child's performing. Yes, the drugs are amazing at doing that. However, for the long term benefit, we get to understand that most children, probably, if I had to guesstimate, believe it or not, there's very few children actually out there that are disordered beyond the ability to overcome whatever academic, behavioral, relational challenges you're seeing. When we look at this accurately, it gives us hope that you can develop a plan and use the resources available through the Power of Able Network or otherwise to be able to help your child overcome. So, overcoming now for the later. Now can be immediate, empowered results by psychotropic drugs or other things, but understanding that there's an overcoming of getting them into a better place through looking at what struggles your child is having, developing a specific plan to empower them to overcome those challenges and working on them. So hopefully in months or years, they actually grow the skills. The drugs alone cannot empower the skills. We get a chance to overcome the third fear. If I don't get my child the help and support now, they will suffer later. When we get them the right help now, meaning that you, with your wisdom, choose the help that's not only going to help them now, but for the long term, based on accurate info, you're in the best spot. The fourth fear that we get to overcome, the old fear, is, well, let me do a recap. I have been recapping. So the first fear, I'm not setting my child up for success. Second fear, if I don't get my child, well, sorry, I messed up. All right, let me recap. Okay, first fear, I'm ignoring my child's needs. Second, I'm not setting my child up for success. Third, if I don't get my child the help and support now, they will suffer later. Fourth, my relationship with my child will suffer. This can be a great fear for a lot of people, that when it comes to what we've been talking about, what's being suggested, to use discipline to empower them to understand how to teach, train, coach them to overcome the challenges, that this can hurt the relationship. There's a lot of narrative about that out there. However, we get to overcome two things: overcome overcompensating and overcome friendship first mentalities. Overcompensating. Many people are compensating. People have adopted children or taken them in or work with them and seen their struggles. And because of love, you've been able to care for them because you have seen what they've gone through or going through, whether it's blended families or how other people are treating them. We can overcompensate. And we're doing that because we're trying to create a balance in the child's life, because we want them to know that they're loved and they're cared for. However, this can often be a disadvantage to the child themselves, that you are not responsible for the problems that the other person or people have or are causing. You get a chance in your relationship to have understandings with your child, that you love them. And that love comes through structure, it comes through discipline, it comes through expectations that are that stretch our children to reach for something greater. Doesn't mean that we are exasperating them. However, we are empowering them, not enabling them. So we can overcome overcompensating. We can compensate by saying, that situation is hard. I will empathize with you on that. At the same time, I'm going to hold you to expectations that empower you in love to bring out the greatest outcome that I believe you're capable of. We also get to overcome friendship first. Friendship is a part of our relationship with our children, with those in our care. We want to be friends with them, and they are our friends, but not friendship first. Parenting is a loving dictatorship. It's not a democracy. We are there to love and guide them as a trusted authority, to bring in trust, respect on the foundation of love. That is so powerful for children, to be able to see a loving authority, to be able to command and demand. Those words can be so off putting today. But what I mean is a person who holds respect for themselves in the relationship and ultimately teaches that to a child with others is so empowering to them, because children know that's how it should be, but they don't have the developmental, the characterologic strength to bring it about without the example, the expectation, and the empowerment, with affirming accountability, affirming in words, accountability in actions on a daily basis, to empower them to push aside what they feel like doing or don't feel like doing and put their energy in what they need to do to grow and develop in their lives. That's what our children need, and we get the opportunity to provide. So friendship is important, just not first. The love, which comes through discipline, the and also our relationship, just being there for them, spending time with them, undivided attention on a regular basis, the trust that, hey, you can trust me to make healthy choices, including being able to expect better of you and hold you to it, and the respect that comes along with that. The four fears we've talked about so far, we get to overcome old fears. They got to go. Fear one, I'm ignoring my child's needs. Two, I'm not setting my child up for success. Three, if I don't get my child help and support now, they will suffer later. Suffer later. Four, my relationship with my child will suffer. And five, I will hurt my child. I will hurt my heart. I will hurt my child's heart, opportunities, and relationships if I choose lovingly firm discipline. They will get hurt. The narratives say that. However, when we look at actual children, I've had so many. I wish you all could be in the office with me when I've counseled countless children over the 27 years God has given me to be a licensed counselor. And I come to you more as a parent and as a person to encourage you now to be able to say, child after child after child have told me that in love, they wanted that loving authority that they know loves them, to be able to apply healthy discipline, because children know this empowers them to push their energy away from things that are not good into the things that are beneficial. Even when we look at a child's energy and you say, well, AJ, my child hasn't been pushing their energy into things that are not good. Well, at the same time, they maybe haven't had, believe it or not, everything they need to push their energy into the things that are best for them. And that's where we struggle. The world says that when we can use our wisdom, maybe we can lovingly push them. We can hold them to an expectation. We can use accountability and discipline to empower this overcoming that these things can hurt their heart, their relationship, their opportunities. And this is inaccurate by and large. Children ask for this. We have seen it. It doesn't hurt the relationship. It doesn't hurt their hearts. What it does is empower them to push their energy to bring out the greatest outcome for their opportunities. So we get to overcome doubt. We get to overcome the temporary pain to bring about the long-term benefits. We get a chance to overcome the old fears. Overcome fear one, I'm ignoring my child's needs. Overcome the narratives. Search for accurate information. Search for truth. Overcome fear two, I'm not setting my child up for success. Overcome your own feelings of inadequacy or doubt or busyness, anything that may be standing in your way of discipling and empowering your child. Fear three, if I don't get my child help and support now, they will suffer later. Overcome the now, the immediate powerful impacts of psychotropic drugs. Doesn't mean don't use them as a resource. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about overcoming the narrative that this is regulating something in their brain, which is not founded in scientific or historic fact. It's not even founded in the DSM. That narrative is not founded in the only source of diagnosis for ADHD in historical fact or in scientific research. It's not. Look for it. Check out my videos where I share information. Find sources of accurate information out there so that we can overcome the now to empower them with a plan to help their life and legacy, the later. Remember the candy, now and later? Yeah, let's get that. Okay. Well, anyway, yeah, sugar free maybe. Okay. And overcome fear four. All right. My relationship with my child will suffer. We got to overcome overcompensating and a friendship first mentality. We get to empower, we get to have them as friends. But first comes love, trust, respect. Overcome fear five. I will hurt my child. Their heart opportunities or relationships. We get to overcome doubt and be able to apply wisdom to empower them to grow like never before and to be consistent with that so that we don't pull back and doubt creeps in and we often get off of paths that will likely be effective when we stick with them continually with faith, hope, and love. You are loved. Your child is loved. We're here for love. We're here for greater things. Thanks for being here as we continue to walk in freedom. I'm going to read this medical disclaimer and we'll be done for today. Thanks for sticking with me. Before we're done, please stay tuned, stay connected, stay involved, like and subscribe. Check out the Power of Able website, powerofable.com. Continue to share this video. Please share this video with someone to encourage them. Even the last video about 2 weeks ago from this one, where we talked about hyper holidays. And if anyone's in a holiday season, hopefully there's words of encouragement there. Medical disclaimer. All right, let's see. Sorry, can't find it. Okay. This content is for informational purposes only and should not be considered professional medical advice. Do not ignore medical advice that you sought from a professional that you trust and continue to receive services and check with them if you have any concerns, questions, or want to make any changes. Thank you so much for being here today. Bless you out there. Seek freedom. Take care.